30 seconds.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Poets Cafe. Tonight we will feature the poetry of Nikki Giovanni, and will bring you excerpts of a recent poetry reading of hers in Ithaca at the Bookery, as well as excerpts from an interview that I conducted with her on her latest collection of poetry, The Selected Poems of Nikki Giovanni. Now we will join her in her poetry reading, which is already in progress.
Like planet Earth, I recommend it. I do. I think it's a wonderful thing that we are here. I do believe that we live in a closed galaxy. I don't have a problem with that. I really think that our galaxy is probably all that we know of it is what it is. But we know that there has to be another galaxy someplace. I am simply suggesting to human beings that we need to learn something about life on Earth so that we can prepare ourselves for life in a form that we do not know. It is a wonderful thing to watch this next century just rolling up on us. We found new stars. And I must say, in all fairness, I'm a big grandmother fan. I know that if anything is going to save us, it's going to be the grandmothers, because the grandmothers are the ones who offer unconditional love. I cheer for all of us in this room who are grandmothers. I do. I cheer for all of us who will have them, and I hope that all of us will at one point become it, because the grandmothers are the ones that say, come here, it's all right, I love you. Say, grandmother, I'm a serial killer. Well, I know you didn't mean it. Right? No, your grandmother's always on your side. I like that. So I know when we go into outer space and we mate with rocks and visions, whatever it is that we find in outer space, three-headed, scaly monsters, it's going to be the grandmother's going to say, bring that little purple thing here. It is. She'll be the one kissing it, because the rest of everybody's like, oh, look at that grandmother, weird. It'll be the grandmother that welcomes her. And since we're going to get to the grandmother position, I'm going to recommend it early. I was channel surfing. I just got to mention this because it does drive me crazy. I just have to mention this. And then I won't mention anything else. I was channel surfing the other day, which I do not recommend. I love TV, and I liked it. I used to, but now they got this Christian channel. Maybe they have one, but I saw this one. And this preacher is like, wow, and he's going like, and furthermore, I know, he says, the agenda of the homosexuals. I thought, wow, I didn't know the homosexuals had an agenda. So I thought I better stay here and find out what it is. Oh, aren't you? I mean, you want to know, you want to be here. The homosexual agenda is that they want to get married. So I was waiting, here's what he said. They want to get married. Everybody's like, yeah, you know, I mean, he's got 5,000 people there, and they're screaming. So I'm thinking, what did I miss? You know, if he had had an 800 number, which he didn't, I would have called in and said, you kidding? You're telling me somebody in 1996 is willing to commit to somebody and we're not happy out of our minds? That somebody, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Somebody's willing to take on a 30-damn-year mortgage? Go to Sears for major appliances? And we don't absolutely welcome that? I thought, what the hell is wrong with you? Anybody crazy enough to commit to another person, we should welcome them. We should be very glad about that. And I don't understand why we're trying to make the heterosexuals think that the homosexuals have a problem. All everybody's trying to do is live. And I don't think we can go for that. You're intelligent too. I don't think that we can go for that kind of talk. I don't think that we can set up these straw dogs so that we can run around and say, girl, what you do? I stopped two homosexuals from getting married? What the hell are we talking about? What kind of sense does that make? None of us are going to die wishing we had hated a little more. None of us are going to die wishing we had beaten up somebody we didn't like. None of us are going to die with some kind of evil in our hearts. All of us are going to die asking for forgiveness, reminding the people that we've lived with that we love them, telling our children that we're proud of them. If we're going to die, and we will, not one of us will die saying something like, I wish I had been at the office more. And if we're not, and if we're going to die, talking about the love we hope we have given. I am simply suggesting at this poetry reading this evening in Ithaca, New York, that we live talking about the same love. Why wouldn't we do that? Why are we allowing people to take away the only thing that makes us human and makes a human life worthwhile, which is the love we have and the love we share? We cannot allow people to tamper with our hearts in that way, because human happiness is necessary and important. There's not a person in this room that doesn't know that. We may not all be happy right now, but we know that human happiness is that which is sought. It is not a frivolity. Happiness is a challenge and a responsibility. But we are all willing to accept responsibility for those that we love. I am simply suggesting also that we have to accept responsibility for those who love us. We have got to move the human experience, in the words of the old gospel song, higher and higher. Every round goes higher and higher. I know that we can do better than what people are saying that we've been doing and what people are saying our future is. We can do better than what this so-called leadership is offering to us. We can do better than what our great-grandparents had to go through. We are not in a depression. This generation, those of you who would be young, we face the problem of sufficiency, not insufficiency, sufficiency. And we will have to find a way to divide and share this cake, because some will not have as much as others. I am not a fool. But the difference between those who don't have and those who do cannot be nothing to 300 million. There has to be a better balance someplace. And you and I can work this out, and we can make human life something that we're proud of, that we can say as we look back to the 1990s to 2000, well, you know, I was a human being then. I was down on earth when that happened, and I'm really very proud. We didn't get all the problems solved, but we didn't turn our backs on it. I know that that's true. I wrote a poem for my parents. Childhood remembrances are always a drag if you're black. You always remember things like living in Woodlawn with no inside toilet. And if you become famous or something, they never talk about how happy you were to have your mother all to yourself, and how good the water felt when you got your bath, or one of those big tubs that folk in Chicago barbecue in. And somehow when you talk about home, it never gets across how much you understood their feelings as the whole family attended meetings about Hollydale. And even though you remember, your biographers never understand your father's pain as he sells his stock and another dream goes. And though you're poor, it isn't poverty that concerns you. And though they fought a lot, it isn't your father's drinking that makes any difference, but only that everybody is together. And you and your sister have happy birthdays and very good Christmases. And I really hope no white person ever has cause to write about me, because they never understand black love is black wealth. And they'll probably talk about my hard childhood and never understand that all the while I was quite happy. I read a love poem. It's called My House. Because it's winter, and we must be in love in the winter. Because it doesn't matter, you know, it really doesn't. I mean, spring comes, it's warm, be in love or not, you can go out. You can, but you know, it's 25 degrees right now, you know. And I tease the guys, and the guys I think put up with it, but there really are two things that human male does, I think, extraordinarily well, in all fairness to human male. And one is he can light a fire. I think that human male is born with the ability. Haven't you noticed that? I mean, we used to try to barbecue, because I grill all the time. And my son Thomas was a little boy, and I would be starting the fire, you know, and it would go out, start a fire. You get that golf lighter fluid, and you know, do not squeeze this after, and I'd be doing that. I'm about to blow myself up. I would call Thomas, who would be in diapers, say, Tom, come light the fire. And the fire would burn all day, you know. It's an amazing, I mean, human male just does that. And I think it's really fair to say the other thing that human male does extraordinarily well is that everybody, I don't want the guys to get, but everybody needs somebody, you know, for their feet. And human male, they're always warm, have you noticed that? And it's true, women have cold feet, and so they let you, if they really are your friends, they'll let you put your feet at their back, right? And for those two reasons, we're going to keep you. Haven't you noticed that? Haven't you noticed? You know, it's true. We got to have somebody to put our feet out. And then when it gets to be spring, you don't need it anymore. You don't have to think about falling in love again. It's just a little love poem. I only want to be there to kiss you as you want to be kissed when you need to be kissed, where I want to kiss you because it's my house, and I plan to live in it. I really need to hug you when I want to hug you as you like to hug me. Does this sound like a silly poem? I mean, it's my house, and I want to fry pork chops and bake sweet potatoes and call them yams, because I run the kitchen and I can stand the heat. I spend all winter in carpet stores gathering patches so I can make a quilt. Does this really sound like a silly poem? I mean, I want to keep you warm. And my windows might be dirty, but it's my house. And if I can't see out sometimes, they can't see in either. English isn't a good language to express emotion through. Mostly, I imagine, because people try to speak English instead of trying to speak through it. I don't know. Maybe this is a silly poem. I'm saying it's my house, and I'll make fudge and call it love and touch my lips to the chocolate warmth and smile at old men and call that revolution, because what's real is really real. And I still like men in tight pants, because everybody has something to give, and more important, needs something to take. And this is my house, and you make me happy. So this is your poem. I wrote a poem for Langston Hughes, speaking of the Harlem Renaissance. And USA Today, I've done 2 poems, I'm going to read them actually this evening. USA Today called my office at Tech, and they said, we're going to do poetry, we're going to do a poetry page. And I'm like, fine, because you know, back paper didn't ever do anything serious like that. And so I said, well, fine. And they said, we wonder if you'd like to do the poem. I said, like, sure. Love to, no problem. When did you want it? I'm thinking, you know, next week, they said Wednesday. Said, you kidding? They said, like, fax it over. And they gave you, you know, fax it. I think, oh, come on. I did a very human thing, actually. It's a weakness. I said, you know, because this is Monday. I said, you know, it's not even that I can't write this poem between now and Wednesday. Nobody can. You know, people, when they can't do something, it's like, nobody can do this. And as I was talking to the editor, I thought, well, maybe the only person that could do it is Langston Hughes, and he's dead. And then it's like, well, if Langston could do it, it could be done. Which meant, of course, that I had a subject, so I said, okay, let me just do it. I have to say this for those of you who are writers in this room, by the way. The fax is not your friend. Because in the old days, I would have been able to, I would have said, sure. And then on Wednesday, I would have called her and said, how do you like the poem? And she would have said, I didn't receive it yet. And I said, you know those mails? I'll put another copy in for you. I mean, you know, I would have had a week to fool around with it. But with the fax, 5 minutes later, they're supposed to have it. So I thought, okay, I've got a subject because I've got Langston Hughes, and I was trying to think, well, what do you do with Langston? Well, Langston, you know, ran those couplets all the time. And I've never written a poem like this again. I probably never will either. But I wanted to, once I decided to do Langston, I thought, I'm going to run couplets like he would do it, because Langston Hughes also said, whatever you write, always write the love poem. And it made a lot of sense to me. It's the same way as if you play, always play the blues. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. So I wrote a poem for Langston Hughes. Diamonds are mined, oil is discovered. Gold is found, but thoughts are uncovered. Wool is sheared, silk is spun. Weaving is hard, but words are fun. Highways span, bridges connect. Country roads ramble, but I suspect if I took a rainbow ride, I could be there at your side. Metaphor has its point of view, allusion and illusion too. Meter, verse, classical, free, poems are what you do to me. Let's look at this one more time, since I put this rap to rhyme. When I take my rainbow ride, you'll be right there at my side. Hey bop, hey, re bop. Langston used to do all those hey bops and re-bops. We just went to New York. I don't know if you all saw it. We were just in New York for the celebration for the 40th anniversary of A Raisin in the Sun. Speaking of Langston and Lorraine Hansberry. And that was kind of wonderful to see people you hadn't seen in a long time. I'm going to read one of my favorite poems. It's called Ego Tribute. I was born in the Congo. I walked to the Fertile Crescent and built the Sphinx. I designed a pyramid so tough that a star that only glows every 100 years falls into the center, giving divine, perfect light. I am bad. I sat on the throne drinking nectar with Allah. I got hot and sent an ice age to Europe to cool my thirst. My oldest daughter is Nefertiti. The tears from my birth pains created the Nile. I am a beautiful woman. I gazed on the forest and burned out the Sahara Desert. With a packet of goat's meat and a change of clothes, I crossed it in 2 hours. I'm a gazelle. So swift, you can't catch me. For a birthday present when he was 3, I gave my son Hannibal an elephant. He gave me Rome for Mother's Day. My strength flows ever on. My son Noah built Newark, and I stood proudly at the helm as we sailed on a soft summer day. I turned myself into myself and was Jesus. Men intoned my loving name. All praises, I am the one who would save. I sowed diamonds in my backyard. My bowels deliver uranium. The filings from my fingernails are semi-precious jewels. On a trip north, I caught a cold and blew my nose, giving oil to the Arab world. I am so hip, even my errors are correct. I sailed west to reach east and had to round off the earth as I went. The hair from my head thinned and gold was laid across 3 continents. I am so perfect, so divine, so ethereal, so surreal, I cannot be comprehended except by my permission. I mean, I can fly like a bird in the sky. Stardate 18628.190. Essence magazine called this Light the Candle, but it is titled Stardate 18628.190. This is not a poem. This is hot chocolate at the beginning of spring, topped with hand-whipped double cream. A splash of brandy to give it sass, and just a little cinnamon to give it class. This is not a poem. This is a summer quilt, log cabin pattern. See the corner piece? That was grandmother's wedding dress. That was grandpapa's favorite Sunday tie. That white strip there is the baby who died. Mama had pneumonia, so the red flannel shows the healing. This does not hang from museum walls, nor will it sell for thousands. This is here to keep me warm. This is not a sonnet, though it will sing, precious Lord, take my hand. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Go down, Moses, way down to the past, way up to the future. It will swell with the voice of Marian Anderson, lilt on the arias of Leontine, dance on the trilling of Battle, do the dirty, dirty with Bessie, moan with Dinah Washington, rock and roll through the 60s, rap his way into the 90s, and go on into space with Etta James saying, at last. No, this is not a sonnet, but the truth of the beauty that the only authentic voice of planet Earth comes from the black soil tilled and mined by the daughters of the diaspora. This is a rocking chair, rock me gently in the bosom of Abraham. This is a bus seat, no, I'm not going to move today. This is a porch where they sat spitting at fireflies, telling young Alex the story of the African. This is a hook rug to cover a dirt floor. This is an iron pot with leftover vegetables making a slow cooking soup. This is pork simmering chitlins, surprising everybody with our ability to make our way out of no way. This is not rest when we are weary, nor comfort when we are sad. It is laughter when we are in pain. It is never mind when we are confused. It is keep climbing, child, when the road takes the unfair turn. It is don't let nobody turn you around when our way is dark. It is the faith of our mothers who plaited our hair, put Vaseline on our faces, polished our rundown shoes, patched our dresses, wore sweaters so that we could wear coats, who welcomed us and our children when we were left alone to rear them, who said, get your education, and nobody can put you back. This is not a poem, no. It is a celebration of the road we have traveled. It is a prayer for roads yet to come. This is an explosion, the original Big Bang, that makes the world a hopeful, loving place. This is the black woman. In all our trouble and glory, in all our past history and future forbearance, in all that ever made love a possibility, this is about us. Bleached and natural, braided and straightened hair, made up or beaten up faces, tall, short, stately bent, CC riders, junkies, whores, wives, mothers, grandmothers, aunts, working in the home or outside, working in the system or outside, working, praying, working to survive, giving pride, giving succor, giving voice, giving encouragement, giving whatever we can give. This is a flag that we placed over Peter Salem and Peter Poor, the 54th Regiment from Massachusetts, all the men and women lynched in the name of rape. Emmett Till, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr. This is a banner we fly for respect, dignity, the assumption of integrity, for a future generation to rally around. This is about us, celebrating ourselves, and a well-deserved honor it is. Light the candle's essence, this is a rocket. That's right. I think in most, any type of job you have, 25 years earns your retirement. And so I'm not retiring from poetry, but it is time to, but it is time to reflect. And one of the things that my editor brought the book to me, actually, I did not bring this book to William Morrow. My editor, Will Schwab, he said, it's been 25 years. And I'm going like, no, because you don't even think about it as being 25 years. I mean, it's not something you think about. And I said, you're kidding. He said, no, why don't you think about doing a selected? Well, of course, the collected would be when I die, we pull out, so the selected shows that I'm still alive and that we can show a certain line of thought. Actually, I had done probably about 100 poems, and Will was saying, well, what about? And so we ended up with 150 poems, and I'm really glad. I think it shows a line of thought. And we have Stardate 1862.8.190. Stardate is in there. The poem for the slave memorial at George Washington at Mount Vernon is in there. The poem for Langston Hughes, and these were not poems in any place else, so it was kind of nice. The poem for Angela Davis is in there. That was a 1960s poem, but it had never been put into a book before. And so what we were able to do is take from 1968 until last year, actually, we just looked at all of the poems, and then we tried to put those in that were either outstanding or that showed the transition in terms of thought. And I think it's probably important for people to, I think if I get lucky and I live another 25 years, that would make me approximately 77, right? I probably won't go on book tour for it. But it would be a good time to do the second 50, right?
I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way that you look at it, Yeah.
I know from reading several of your essays and interviews that you're an avid Star Trek fan, and I noted that the final poem that you read tonight had a star date. Why did you think that was an appropriate, what's the significance of the title, your choice of title?
I really think the significance of the title and star date will probably earn somebody a PhD, because their numbers, they're not exactly hieroglyphics, but they're not hieroglyphics either. It's not a Rosetta Stone, but the numbers do in fact represent something. And I decided when I gave it the title that I gave it, that I was not going to be the one to say what they represent. Somebody else will have to go out and do it. Maybe somebody gets interested, maybe nobody gets interested, who knows, right? If they do, they'll figure it out, and if they don't...
You're writing once that you felt that empathy, more than experience, was something that should serve as a motivation to write. And I thought that was particularly insightful for me anyway, because, I felt that that it is more about empathizing with someone rather than just experiencing something, that's crucial. And I was wondering, what motivates you to write? Who or what has served as primary sources of motivation for you to write throughout the years? And why do you write poetry in particular?
I probably write poetry because it's what I do. I don't even think like playwrights. Entezaki writes those plays. I could never do that. And Toni Morrison writes those wonderful novels. I could never do that. I like what poetry does, and I think it's just a question of talent. But I think that all that any of us are trying to do is envision a world, right? We're just trying to do the best that you can. And we know no matter how we cut it, we cannot experience everything. It's not possible. And that being the case, we have to begin to, and of course that's a Native American expression, we have to, walk a mile in someone else's moccasins, that kind of thing. Well, that's empathy. And I do say to myself, gee, I don't know if I would like it if somebody did yak, yak, yak to me, or boy, would I like it if such and such. So we empathize with a lot of things, and I'm a strong believer in empathy. And you try to, and sympathy, but sympathy can sometimes be an arrogant position, that you sort of sympathize with this poor thing, But then when you empathize, you are really sharing the experience, and I think that that's kind of important.
My question is this, what sort of courses or what aspects need to be developed in courses to continue to encourage writing as opposed to killing it?
Information. And I sincerely think, and I teach advanced creative writing, and I teach the intro, 2744, I teach 2 courses of that. And what we do is current information. So I never would sit down with a student. If you were in my writing class, I would never sit down and say, this is how you write a poem. What I would do is give you a scenario. So we have a variety of things. We read the newspaper, and I think that's very important. And we come in and say, what's the story? We had a fire, and that was totally sad. The entire class and I all were in tears. We had a fire in a trailer, because a lot of trailer homes, and the kids got burned up, right? And so we come in and we just put that on the board, here's the story. Here's the situation, what's the story? And so people had to write about that. And of course that's sad, because you have the father came home and his family is wiped out. right? And so you've got, there's a poem in there. There's a poem, you got to look for it. You know, where is the poem? So I don't try to teach, this is how you write a poem. What I'm saying is that as we look at these subjects, this is the things we come up with. But I make them do a lot with sports, too, and it drives them crazy.
With sports?
And, yeah, sure.
How do you mean?
Oh, yeah, we write poems about sports and stuff because, sports are important because athletes, like artists, are public performers. But all the mistakes of athletes are in public. All the mistakes of writers are private. And so I want my writing students to understand, if anybody can make a mistake in private, we can handle it because nobody knows we've really, blown it. These kids make a mistake in public. So I want them, we're back to that word, I want them to sympathize. When the team loses, everybody gets upset. They're just bums. When we make a mistake and write a bad poem, we hit delete. And I'm trying to get them to see that. So I don't teach anything near, and that's what I said, I don't, my class is nothing near like a traditional course. And what I want us to do is I want us to complete a project while we're there. So we take a subject, and I don't take the subject, they do. And we put the subject in a variety of forms. So that we write a poem, we write a play, just again to help keep them, to get their mind sharp. But mostly what I want them to look at television, and I want them to read the newspaper. And it sounds so silly, but as we go through it, I want them to keep telling me what the story underneath the story is. Because it's not, if I taught poli-sci, I'd do the same thing, catch the politician lying. But this is about life. So every time we see things, whether it's happy, a guy just won Powerball and won $82 million, right? There's a story there, right? There's a story there in terms of a relative he's never seen coming up to him. I mean, there's a story of a woman who turned him. I mean, there are stories. And so I want my kids to think about what other aspects do we write about. We don't just accept the headlines. Let's look beneath them.
Let's beneath them.
Yeah,
I
sure.
think it's wonderful. Okay, are there any other thoughts that you have about writing, about like poetry that you'd like to share?
No, I think it's something, I'm one of those people that believes everybody's got a poem in them. And I would certainly encourage it. Everybody's not going to be a professional writer. But I think that keeping a record is important because we're living in an age that records can easily be wiped out. It is very, very frightening to think that everything is online. So any glitch, any virus, anything I saw that thing with Sandra Bullock, I think it's called The Net. Where they just wiped her out. And we know that. I mean, we know that now that everything is electronic, it's very easy. And so people tend to not value their own recollection of events. They tend to want to go and pull them up. So there are things that that happen, that you read about it, and it's like, is that the way it was? And you start to believe what you read. We know that liars keep records too. So I think it's very important for ordinary human beings like you and me to keep a record of this is what happened, this is what I felt, this is what I saw, this is what I thought.